Hi student. Um, Today we continue with Architecture 113 chapter 6. In this chapter you will learn about types construction. Remember from last lecture on Architecture 113 we go over with the groups in architecture, the groups. So that's why you have 10 January for the different kind of group, but today we will learn about type from construction. Type from construction, we have 5 different one of them. It starts from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each of them we can have A and B. So that's why we have many different types from construction. And when you hear about the type from construction, you should thinking about the material they use for that one, the protect for the building structure. So type from construction is regard with the material, and they divide by main two of them. That's a combustible and non-combustible. That means easy to fire or not fired, and depend on that we have the structure for the building. We can go with that, and if you go to chapter 6, we need to have the study section number 3. If you see study section, this similar with assignment, and after you go review with chapter 6, you need to go with assignment number 3, study section number 3, because this is the third one we start with the lecture. So each of the section, that's each of assignment. I call that's 1, 2, 3, and you need to finish for 18 for total with the course. So today we have 3 of them. So now go back with the type from construction. If you go to chapter 6, they will let you know some kind like specific type from construction, and on of the construction material at various building elements, so you can resistant to the fire. So that's why the most important thing when you learn for the type from construction, that means you learn how to go with protect the building from the fire. So on chapter 6 they will cover various types of construction. They start from 1 to 5, and some of type they have divided as for A or B, and depend on that the construction will follow that when you apply for structure. So basically they will share with you about type 1, what for element to use for the type 1 construction, what difference between type 1 and type 2, and after that how can differ from the fire protection for each of them. And you also learn from the type 3, type 4, and type 5. So if you use for a type construction, you must focus on the roof framing, the floor, and partitions. So that's why on of the wall structure should follow with the type. And type 5 building may construct for what kind of material. So that's why on of the chapter 6 they can share with you, they can show you the type from construction and the material different between type to type. And basically they also divide by number A. You look at this for A and B. For example, type 5A and type 5B. So beside of type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, some of them they divide by A and B, and depend on that you will learn more about material specific for that type. So for example on here, if you look at this, you can see that they have type 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if type 1, they can divide by type 1A or type 1B. Same thing with type 2, you have A and B. 3. Type 5 we have HT, stand for heavy timber, and type 5 we have AB again. So for with type 1 and A, you can use for non-combustible material. For exterior or interior bearing or non-bearing walls, floor or roofs, elements, you can use for non-combustible material. With type 3, 4, and 5, we need to use for either non-combustible or combustible. So that's why you use either one of them. And when you select any type from construction, you need to show on the title sheet for make sure that the plan checker in the city, they know what code you use for that one, and they focus to check that one for you. And if you go with this one, you can see that they have show you the section cut from the building, and after that you can see some kind like they divide us. For example, type 1A, we have the roof one with 1.5 hours fire rate roof, and on the wall we have 3 hour exterior bearing wall, and on the floor you need 2 hours. Partition, you don't need it. That means you don't need to select the fire rate. And after that, structure frame or interior bearing wall, and you need 3 hours. In this one, I just friendly remind with you that some of them you call that 3 hour, 2 hour, or 1 hour, something like that. That means they let you know that's the wall structure. If in case the fire coming, the wall can stay how long for that one. For example, they say 3 hours wall, exterior wall. That means that's in case fire inside or outside around the wall can stay 3 hours. If they say 1 hour, that means they stay 1 hour. Okay. So for example, you can see that type 1A and type 2A, type 1B. If you compare with this one, you can see that just change from type 1A or B, and you can get different one for material for construction. For example, 1A, you have the roof 1.5 hours, but 1B you need 1 hour only. And 1A and 1B, you look at this exterior wall, they need 3 hours, but in this one they have 1 hour only. And if you look at interior one, sorry, basically even same type but different division. For example, you have type 1A and type 1B, it's different from the structure. So you see that's, for example, type 1B, we have floor ceiling 2 hour, but 2 hours the same with this one, but partition you don't need to rate. And after that, this one you need 2 hour for structure framing, you need 2 hour, but on 1A you need 3 hours. So that means it's need to have more different materials for 3 hours, 2 hours. Same thing with that. If you see type 2, and this is type 2 also, but type 2A and 2B is different one. Roof on type 2A they have 1 hour, but on B, 2B, we don't need any 1 hour. That means non-rate. And after that, exterior wall you need 1 hour, but on 2B you don't need it. That means regular wall you don't need 1 hour, 2 hours for this one. And the floor plan, I mean the floor on the ceiling, you have 1 hour structure, but on 2B you don't need it. Same thing like that. So basically, even two in the same type but different rate for A or B's, and you have different structure, follow that one. And this one is very important, because if you not show that, and the city they cannot check for you exactly what kind of material you use for that building when you go to the field. Okay. Same thing with that, they will also share with you about type 3. And type 3 construction, they have some kind of exterior wall, they need 2 hours. And after that, on here you can see the text, they show you like the type 3 construction. If the construction with exterior wall are non-combustible material. Non-combustible material and interior building element, they need some, in IBC they require for interior, they don't need to fire rate, but the floor ceiling you need 1 hour. Structure you need 1 hour also. And for type 2B, you don't need to show 1 hour or 2 hour rate. That means non-rates. Except the exterior wall, we need 2 hours, similar with the A. So 3A and 3B, same exterior wall, but the inside one is different. On 3A, we need on of 1 hour construction, except partition. Partition you don't need it. But on 3B, you need like you don't need any hour for the construction one. That time 3. How about time 4? Time 4, they use the heavy timber. Heavy timber is the one thick wood you use for that, so that's why on the roof one you can see that they use the heavy timber. Heavy timber they can use for the construction, for the extra wall on non-combustible material. So if you look at 4, you can see time 4 they focus on the heavy timber. So they use heavy timber on the floor and the roof one. And on exterior 2 hour, on of the structural frame they use heavy timber. And heavy timber is non-combustible one. And this partition you need 1 hour. So basically it depends on what type of the construction you can use. The material is different, follow with that time. And all of them they put the notes on table 601 and 602 on IBC, so you can look over with the section 6, chapter 6, and you can figure out on table 601 and 602 for more information about that one. So on heavy timber, they have some of the minimum dimension for the heavy timber. So on the table 2304.11 they show you some of the dimension from the heavy timber. So this is some of them they show by inches. For example, the first one they show like 8 inches, and after that for the minimum on the laminate, glue laminate, and the first one is solid, and we can see that's the distance, the thickness is smaller, and this one is bigger, the depth is bigger, and with another kind from the lumber. So on of 3 different one, and they have different size from the heavy timber, and they have the table for you when you use for the roof one or you use for a floor or the roof one. This is one example for you can see the timber that is so thick. You look at this, and they use almost for the roof one and the wall with the floor right here also. This is one example for type 4 construction. Type 4 is regard with the material is heavy timber. Okay, this is another example, so you can see that's on of the section cut from type 5. Type 5 is the one you use a lot in residential. 5B is the one you use in the residential almost. So when you check for the structure for the building, a lot of residential, that means almost they use for 5B. And so now, what difference between 5A and 5B? 5A and 5B, on the roof one, 5A they require 1 hour fire resistant rate. 5B they don't need it, that's mean regular one. On the exterior wall for 5A they need 1 hour, and on type B they don't need it, none rate. On the ceiling or the floor don't need it. So basically on type B, on the floor, the roof, the exterior wall, and structure they don't need the fire rate. This one type A, 5A, we need it. Floor we need 1 hour, and the rest structure framing they need 1 hour for bearing. Exterior they need 1 hour. So basically type 5A and 5B just different in one thing. In type B they don't require for any hour or none raise for on of roof, ceiling, wall, and partition. Okay, so now if you go to the house, sometimes you see this one they not require for fire rate. However, if you go to one house, for example residential, you start from the garage and after that you go to the living, kitchen, something like that, but between garage and some living area or some kitchen, that means the wall between garage and another living area, we need to do for 1 hour fire rate, because you change to another group one. On residential, for all of the room, and after that you jump with the garage. It's a different kind from the group one. The group from garage, if you go back with lecture number 2, garage is group U, and the other one you use for group R. So that's why you cannot use the same type wall, type from construction. So that's why the wall between garage and the other living area, we need to do 1 hour fire rate. Or you do for the material for the fire rate from floor up to the roof sheeting. That means you need drywall, you need to drip gypsum X. That's material special for fire, and we can do that between garage and another living room. I will share with you about example from that one in the future, for you can see when you change the roof to the roof, and group A or roof B or roof U or roof R, something like that, and we need to change the group one, and we need to change for the material structure. Okay, so basically we have 5 types from construction, and each type from construction it can be different, A and B, and the material also different too. So now if you look at on the primary structure frame, you can see that we have column, we have girder, beam, truss, and we have floor or roof system like that. All of them have direct connection to the column. So for example, you have some column right here, and after that you have this one, maybe the ceiling, and you can see that they have the material from this is the column, and after that some of the beam, and you can see the beam, they don't need the fire rate, they don't need the fire rate, but you look at this is the ceiling, and this is the ceiling, and they need it. This is the wall, they need it. This is they say yes, that means they need the fire rate for the ceiling and for the wall, the side wall. And the other thing for connection, they don't need it. They say no, that means they don't need the fire rate for this one. That's one material for the ceiling, and material for the wall, especially on the wall they specify right here, they need to show the fire rate material. That's the specific material. Can do the chipboard right here, 5x, 5/8 Gmax, for make sure that qualify for fire rating. The other one they say no, that means they don't need to design, or they don't need the material special for fire. On the second one, you can see right here some of commercial building, especially for the group F1, HMS1. Just friendly remind with you, F stands for factory, H stands for hazard, M mercantile, and S for storage. This is some kind like the big area, and focus on the factor or hazardous, mercantile, and storage. This one they need to minimum for the height from the ceiling is 20 feet minimum. With on of the group right here, you need to do design for minimum is 20 feet. You can do higher, and this is the truss structure. If you look at on the roof one, they need to design for fire protection on the roof structure member. So on here we need the special material for fire, and also we need, they say, the member from the roof construction, the wall, the beam, and the ceiling. They also need for fire resistant rate. So this is one example, so you can see one of the section building from group F1, HM, and S1. You need minimum 20 feet, and after that on the roof one you need fire protection for that one. Also on the beam and the column you need to do same thing. Okay, this one another example, so you can see how fire resistant for exterior bearing wall. So just let you know that's the bearing wall. You usually hear about non-bearing wall and bearing wall. So non-bearing wall is the wall they didn't support for the loads or lateral load for whole of the building. They just support for the position is the wall only, and they don't need to protect anything else. they don't need to support anything else. So that's why they do very simple, just stuck on the floor and up to the ceiling, or stuck in the ceiling with the floor, and they don't need to show specific for the section to support for another roof one or the ceiling one. So that's why you call that the non-bearing wall. Bearing wall is the wall you have the foundation, you have the footing, support up to the roof one, or support to another member structure. For example, the shear wall, or you need to support for the ceiling or the roof one. That means you support something for the load, and you call that the bearing wall. So this is the detail from on of they showed you some kind of type of construction with occupancy, and after that the group one. So all of them have special for how many rating hour you need to require for that one. They show 3 to something like that. That means 3 hour, 2 hour, 5 rating wall you need to design for. And this one they have the group one on, or 1A, or 1A, or 2, 1B. They show you like that for the detail one. On the right side, you can see that exterior wall. This is exterior wall, and it is the boundary line. That means the property line between this building and another one. So if they say the lot line, that means the line it have on the map. Usually they say the map you can see on the county. They have from property and property, they share the property like this, and they show everything very detailed on the vicinity map from the county. So this one you can see that the wall outside here, you can see that's the wall. They need the distance from here. They measure exactly the perpendicular to the wall to the boundary, and they make sure that face of the wall with the boundary line. Usually on table 602 they will show you how far from, that means the distance between the wall from the building to the boundary line. In residential, they require from exterior wall from the house to the property line on the side one, minimum is 5 feet. And in front of that, for example, the street right here, and this is the wall from the house. On residential, they require for 20 feet. And in the rear side setback, they require for it's around 10 feet. So now, if you have the angle on the building, and the way they count is they draw perpendicular with the angle line, and after that they measure the distance right there to make sure the face from the wall, exterior wall, perpendicular with the lot line on the property line. And all of them they call that protection for the wall outside adjacent to the lot line. So on the exterior wall, we have many things to need to discuss too. For example, you have the building, but the building they have group A1, and after that they have 1B. The structure, the type of the structure is type 1B. So if you have the wall right here, you call that the wall A, and they have 8 feet from the lot line. So we can do, in the case like this, it can be the bearing or non-bearing. If you do the bearing wall, you need on the table you need 2 hours, and if you use non-bearing, you don't need to require, if you keep the distance right here 8 feet distance. So basically it depends on the type of construction, and you can same distance, but if you change the type of construction, you need to follow the code for make sure that's how much you need to use for material at that one, 2 hours, 1 hour, and on table 601 and 602 they share with you about that. And type of construction right now is on the building codes. They share with you a lot of the different one, from the bearing wall and bearing wall for fire resistant rate, hour, 2 hour, and more than that. They can share with you. They can show with you the material for that one. For example, they have the thermoacoustic insulation. For you can limit the flame spread out. That's why the fire material, they can protect the building, for the fire cannot or take longer to spread out to another area. So if you select the type and construction, and the plan checker, they need to follow that to check in the code for make sure that you use the right material when you start to do construction. Okay, heavy timber, and one of them in the fire you need to know, and a block for the handrail, fixture, window, or door frame, all of them regard with the fire rating. So that's why very special when design something with the fire rate. You need to follow the code, and this is one of them you can learn from. So basically on this chapter you learn from type from construction. Basically we have 5 of them: type 1, type 2, 3, 4, and 5. However, on type 4 we have one group only. You call that the heavy timber. From type 1, type 2, type 3 we have A and B. Same thing with type 5. And type 5 from construction, it focus on of residential. They use type 5 for construction. So basically they don't need to do the fire rate on the wall, roof, ceiling. However, in one of the projects, if you change from the group, and maybe you need to add for the fire rate on this one. This is the last example they share with you for the section cut. You can see that on the group 1, they use the truss 1, and they use type 2 for construction. And combustible pipe, because the pipe goes through with the ceiling, and after that we have the grid 1. All of them, they use the type 2 for construction. So if you have combustible mechanical, that means this is the type from mechanical system. If you use for combustible, for the lumbing in type 1 and type 2, and you don't need to fire rate for that one. If you have this one for combustible, okay, so that's why. If not, and you need to use for special fire rate for the type of construction. Okay. So same thing with another lecture. We have assignment, and this is the assignment for this chapter. So we have study section number 3, and we have 35 questions for that one, multiple choice. You need to answer the question, all of the question, and email me not later than the weekend on the lecture time. Okay. And how about that you just check on the last schedule, and you can see what the lecture due date, and you need to finish this homework and email me on that weekend. Okay. Thank you for watching the chapter, and we can have more example for next chapter, and I try to share with you some of example look like ADU, but now I have another topic, and I will continue with another one for you can go closer with the real example instead of go with the code book like this. So I hope that you can get easier than if you compare with the lecture number 1. You feel a lot of things not really interesting, but I hope that later from chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 like that, I try the best to give a lot of example, so you can see easier than about the code 1, and I hope that you enjoy the class. Okay, so this is the lecture number 3. I just remind you this is Architecture 113. In case if you go to another class, and this is class 113 for International Building Code, and it's cover chapter 3 in the book, and the study companion, it says study section number 3, and it show all of the type from construction. One more time, we have 5 different types from construction, and 10 different one from the architecture groups. So if you have the group 1, you have group A, B, C, not C, F, E, S, H, M, F. And if you have type of construction, you have 5 different ones. Type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just type 4, we use the heavy timber, solid wood, glue laminate, and the other one, type of construction, is have, they divide by general one is combustible and non-combustible material. Depend on that, you design for building, and you select the type of construction, and of course, each of the type of construction, it have the different kind of material. Okay, so type of construction is focused like that, and right now I hope that you know what they call that's the wall or the roof is 1 hour fire rate, 2 hour fire rate, non-rating, or 3 hour fire rate. When they say 1, 2, or 3 hour fire rate, that means the material can stay 1, 2, 3 hours. Prevent for the fire spread out slower. So that's why the function from the structure from fire. Okay, so thank you so much for watching chapter 6, and see you next lecture. Bye bye.